Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice blitz game that was played in 2007 between Crafty, the program, and Hikaru Nakamura. This game was requested many times, but I've never got around to show it, so I'm showing it now. I was planning on showing you a game from the match Dingliren versus Wei Yi, but both of the games that they played so far ended in fairly quick draws, not a lot to show there. So I thought, alright, we have time for a couple of suggestions, and some people are requesting more games by Hikaru as he's now the member of the candidates tournament, and I thought as I still haven't shown this one, it's quite nice. It's a very long game for a blitz game. It's some 150 moves, but we're not gonna analyze the entire game because they're just there's no need for it, as you'll see. So I don't have a photo of Crafty. The program is retired, so I used the Fate from Chrono Cross. I've learned that tomorrow is they are releasing a remastered version of Chrono Cross, so I thought that would be a nice gesture. It's a wonderful game that I remember playing. It was released in 1999, so 23 years ago, I just enjoyed it so much that I thought, yeah, why not? Let's use this. I might be interested, depending on how much time I will have. Maybe I could even stream the remaster for a couple of hours, maybe on Twitch, but we'll see how it goes. So getting back to the game, let's check it out. Crafty has the white pieces and opens with knight to c3, the Van Geet opening, and Hikaru plays g6. We have e4, Crafty grabs the center, and the bishop to g7 by Hikaru. We have bishop to c4, and now e6, setting up a modern defense here. Knight to f3, and now knight to e7. We have castles and the d6, so not going for any sharpness right from the beginning, because even though in 2007 engines were nowhere near the strength that they are today, they could still, they were very, very tricky in sharp tactical positions. So you want to play against the engine slowly, positionally, and try and grind them out. So here, and also as of d6, we have a completely new game. So here d4, Crafty grabs the full center, Hikaru castles, and now bishop to g5. We have h6, Hikaru says, alright, I don't like this bishop here, it's spinning my knight, so I remove it or capture my knight. So the Crafty brings the bishop back, and b6 now. Hikaru will now fianchetto the other bishop as well. We have queen to d2 now, attacking the h6 pawn, and Hikaru defends it with king to h7, and it makes sense. You would play this even if black wasn't attacking it, because you want to get the king away from this diagonal and start some future expansion with a move like f5. So here, white should just continue with developing the rooks with some like rook a to d1, rook f to e1, but here d5 is played, and this is, what I was saying. Computers in those days especially were not very good at positional chess. So Hikaru just closes the position, and now knight to e1. Of course, we know that f5 is coming, so f3 will help in defending the center. Hikaru strikes in the center with f5. We have f3, and now f4. So attacking, but also keeping the position closed. Bishop to f2, and now Hikaru continues pushing with the g5. Now h5, g4 are ideas for the future, but of course first we want to develop our pieces as well to help out with the attack. We have knight to d3, and now h5. And here white isn't really doing all that great. White should consider something like a4, playing on the queen side, but here we have rook a to e1, and it's not all that clear what the rook will be doing here, but it's just, I mean, if you remember the match Alpha Zero versus Stockfish, you've seen how Alpha Zero completely outplayed Stockfish in a positional sense, and that was like 2018. So you can imagine how in 2007 computers did not play good positional chess. So here knight to g6 by Hikaru, we have rook to e2, and now bishop to h6. Now if the position opens up, you have your bishop aligned with the white queen. So knight to e1, and now g4. Hikaru continues attacking. We have queen to d3, getting the queen away from this diagonal, and also putting the queen on this diagonal might be useful in the future. And now Hikaru plays a6. So it's a very flexible setup. If white starts a4, b4, at some point, if a5, you can play b5. If b5, you can play a5. So Hikaru wants to keep the center and the queen side closed and attack on the king side. And here Crafty does go for a4. We have knight to d7, and now comes king to h1. if the position opens up, now Crafty might use the G file for the rook. So knight to f6, Hikaru just brings more pieces to the attack, and the b4. We have rook to f7, and now rook to g1, saying that, okay, you can't really play g3 because I guarded that square twice, but that's exactly what Hikaru does. g3, he sacrifices a pawn to open up the lines for attack. So h captures on g3, f captures, bishop captures, and now h4. And there's really no way for you to do anything here, because if you move the bishop, we're just going to play knight h5. And now once this knight comes to g4, to g3, it's all over. Let's say you play something, knight g3 check, and that's it. Let's say king h2, bishop f4. There are no moves for the white king. So instead, bishop captures on h4. Crafty gives back the piece, knight captures, and now g3. And here we have knight back to g6. Hikaru could also just play knight to h5, and he probably would have done this against any human opponent, because if, let's say, captures bishop f4, and there are simply too many threats here. But the engines are always tricky when it comes to tactics. So better just keep it clean. And now rook to h2. So okay, Crafty got the h file opened, and now he might play something like king to g2, rook to h1, double up on the h file, and try to use the h file to attack Hikaru's king. So king g7, Hikaru unpins, and now king to g2. We have rook to f8, preparing to shift the attention over to the open h file, and knight to d1 now. We have rook to h8 and rook g to h1, doubling up on the h file. Bishop to g5, Hikaru offers a trade of rooks, and now rook captures, knight captures. We have knight to f2, and now knight to g6. So still not all that much for white to do here. We have c3, and Hikaru plays queen to e8. This knight will move at some point, and then the queen is coming to g6. So b5, and Hikaru, of course, closes the position. He wants to keep playing on the king side. So now the position is completely closed. There's really nothing you can do on the queen side or in the center of the board. Knight to c2. Now comes knight to e7. We have knight to h3, attacking the bishop, and now bishop captures on h3. You very gladly give up this bishop. That's really doing nothing, and it's hard to figure out the way how to develop it. So just bishop captures on h3, rook captures, and now queen to g6. We have king to f2, as the g file might come under siege at any point. Rook to h8 now, offering a trade of rooks, and Crafty trades. We have rook captures, king captures, and now bishop to a2. So if you look at this light square bishop and all of the pawns on light squares, it's really hard to understand how this bishop will come back into the game. And well, not only that, Hikaru is just up a piece, but that's not the point here. The point is how Hikaru, I have to say it humiliates Crafty this game. So knight to d7, we have knight to e1, we have knight to c5 now, as that is a beautiful square for the knight, queen to c2, now comes queen to h6, we have knight to g2, and now knight to g6. So Crafty is still defending very well, and perhaps as the position is so close, maybe Hikaru will not be able to break through. We have a bishop to c4, now comes queen to h2. We have bishop to f1, keeping everything closed, and now king to g7. Hikaru starts bringing the king into the game, also it's a bit safer on g7, queen to a2, waiting for Hikaru to figure out what to play. Knight to f8. We have bishop back to c4. Crafty is out of moves. Only repetition is an option here. Knight to h7. We have king to f1, and now queen to h1 with check. Now Hikaru brings the queen into the game. King f2. Now queen to c1. We have bishop to e2, and now comes knight to f6. We have queen to c4, and now bishop to d2, finally going after the c3 pawn, and this is how Hikaru will make progress. We have g4, queen captures on c3, and now you really don't have all that many moves with white. Here Crafty trades, we have captures, and bishop to d1. So now Hikaru is up a piece, but still all of the pawns on light squares. How will Hikaru break through here? So bishop to d2, we have knight to h4, and now knight to g8. We have king to e2, waiting to see what Hikaru will do. Bishop g5 attacks the knight, knight f5 check, king f7, and now bishop to c2. So still not all that simple. Knight to e7, and especially because it's a blitz game. So knight back to g3, knight to d7, and now king to d3. Knight g6, we have knight to f5 again, and king to f6. We have king to c3, knight to h4 now, offering a trade of knights, and here Crafty trades with as this pawn is also attacked, so captures, and king back to d2. And it seems like it will be even harder for Hikaru to break through now, but king g5 with bishop to d1 and king to f4. So how can we win this pawn? Well, we have to attack it one more time, and that's going to happen with the knight, as the bishop is a dark square bishop, the pawn is on a light square. So king e2, white will of course try to get the king over to g2, so both the king and the bishop can defend the pawn. Knight to f6, we have king to f1, and now knight to h7. The knight, of course, is coming to g5. King g2, we have bishop to e1, and now king to f1. Bishop back to g3, now comes bishop to e2, and finally knight to g5, saying, all right, now you're in Zugzwang, there is absolutely no move you can make here, because if you play king to g2, then we just, if the king goes forward, then you lose the bishop, but if you play bishop to h4, now there's really nothing for white to do. You have to either move the bishop away from the defense of the pawn. Okay, you can play bishop d1, but after king e3, now these two squares have been taken from the light square bishop, so you will either have to move the bishop away from the defense of the pawn, or you will have to move the king away from the defense of the pawn. So that's why after knight g5, king to g1 was played, and now Hikaru wins the pawn with check. Finally, the knight captures on f3, king g2, now comes knight to e1 with check, king f1, knight to c2 now, and here king to g2. And here knight to e3 check, king to h3, bishop to e1, and now g5. There's really nothing else for white to do. Here we have king captures, king h2, king to f4, bishop to d3, and now knight to g4 check. So the position is completely winning, and this is a blitz game, so one might expect that, okay, Hikaru will now create a passed pawn, push the pawn, promote it to a queen, and that's it. He will probably checkmate the white king. Well, you couldn't be further from the truth, as you'll see what happens. So king g2, knight f2 going after the bishop, bishop c2, and now we win the pawn. Knight captures on e4, bishop to b3, and now knight to c5, attacking the bishop and the a4 pawn. King f1 attacking the bishop, and here Hikaru very happily trades. Knight captures on b3, king captures on e1, and now knight to c5. So we have a passed pawn, and well, you could just promote it to a queen and win that game that way, but not really. There are 5 pawns left, and Hikaru will promote all of them to a knight, and he will have 6 knights on the board. So that's pretty insane. And okay, king e2, we don't have to really analyze because it's just the knight and the king gobbling up pawns here. And there you have it. The first pawn promotes to a knight. Then Hikaru sets up the position, so the white king cannot capture anything. Here, okay, the king defends. Now we promote the other pawn to a knight. Okay, Hikaru now has 3 knights. And now we set up the position for promotion of the second pawn, or rather the fourth pawn. Here, the pawns start marching forward. There you have it. Pawn on c4, king d2, e3 with check, and now you have to be very careful not to stalemate the white king. C2 check, king to c1, and now even e2, preventing the king from going to d1, but you can go to d2. Now comes king here, just waste the move, force the white king to move, and now bring another knight into the game. So luckily it's still not stalemate. King to d2, knight delivers check, and now we're gonna promote the last 2 pawns. So here, just remaneuvering some pieces. The 5th knight is in the game. Here Hikaru just will put the white king in the corner. d2, king g2, and now d1 knight. There's the 6th knight in the game. And here Hikaru will now checkmate the white king using all of his knights, and that's pretty insane. So here king f2, you can see that the knights are marching forward, and here you have to be very, very careful not to stalemate the white king. Knight to e3, we have knight f4, king g1, knight to f3 with check, king to h1, and of course knight to g3, and this is now checkmate, and this is the position. Some of you probably have already seen it, but what a way to crush a computer in a blitz game. And it wasn't a bad computer. I mean, we'd probably all get crushed by Crafty in those days, but you can see just how, when it comes to positional chess, a computer in those days could not rival a grandmaster by a long shot. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, as you have requested this game quite a lot, quite a few times over the years. So there it is, the famous Six Knights position. So I think this is the game, official game with the most horsing around of all the games ever played. And let's tell the truth here. If you had the Six Knights on the board, would you be able to do this without stalemating the White King in a Blitz game? So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to GM Maestro Turon, and I would like to thank OpenSea Smoky Dule, OpenSea Smoky Dule, OpenSea Smoky Dule, and Dan Averbuk for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, such as this one and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.